Hello, and welcome to this week's Weekly Lift. I am Latoya Logan, and we will be continuing our conversation around wellness with our wellness series, Episode 5, Environmental Wellness. Now, I know you might not be thinking that environment as a word fits into your well-being or your overall health, but it actually does. When we are existing in spaces where we don't feel included, where we don't feel respected, where we don't feel that our opinions or our needs aren't being addressed or even represented in those different spaces that we will find ourselves in, it has a negative impact on us. I've worked places where pulling up to the job, pulling up into that space started to change my energy, and it impacted my mood moving forward. So environmental wellness, it is large. It could be the big W world, like the world around us, or it could be the small W's, your individual world, your family's world, your work world, your gym world, your volunteer world. So I'm hoping today to really tie in the importance of creating an environment that is reflective of your overall wellness and well-being, but also that you learn how to remove yourself from environments or protect yourself if you can't remove yourself while you are in environments that might not necessarily nurture who you are or feed the person you are trying to become. So I always like to begin with a grounding definition. Environmental wellness is defined as that it encompasses various aspects of the world, which might be things that are natural or man-made, so things we might build, but it really is about how we create harmony with the world around us. So if we look at the big world, we're thinking, how are we engaging with people out in the world? How are we supporting and promoting social justice? How might we be creating space in the world for our own identities and experiences? This could also be, how are we just simply taking care of the environment, recognizing climate change and engaging in what might minimize or reduce some of that, our negative carbon footprint into the world. So the first thing we're going to look at is just sustainability living. How do we get to a place where we are sustainably living, where our needs are being met, we are getting some of our wants, but we are being mindful of how that impacts the larger environment. Some of the ways that we do that is, okay, if you're focused on climate change, you might be a person who's investing in solar energy or wind power. You might be a person who chooses to bike whenever you can, as opposed to driving your vehicle. You might be a person who unplugs what you're not using in your home to reduce just that residual usage in your home. And that all matters. You could also be a person who is mindful of how you utilize different objects or things in your home. So you purchase clothes, and we know that fast fashion is one of the biggest ways that we are kind of leaving a negative footprint, on the environment, because we buy these clothing at a very cheap amount. They're producing large amounts, and then they end up in landfills, and we're not using them. We throw them away. And so maybe you're a person who says, you know what, I won't buy fast fashion, or I'll make sure that I donate whatever I'm not using. So every year, do you go through and donate? I try to, every single year in December, I always go through my closet and I thin things out. What do I need? What don't I need? One, it's a reminder that I probably spent too much money on clothing in the first place. But two, how can I help somebody else? It's not that you're going to donate things that are torn up and you wouldn't wear, but you're donating things that might benefit someone else. And that's the way that I think about it often. You might also be a recycler. Now, I am big on recycling. I quite literally, in every room of this office space, there's a recycling bin. We don't have recycling services at our office location, so I take all those things home. I have a huge box at my house where I collect everything that's recyclable, because I do believe that we can do something, even if it's a small thing, we can do something to positively impact our environment and address climate change, because it is here. It could be, when you think about the environment, how you choose to engage in the environment, and that would be nature. Do you go on walks through parks? Do you sit out in the grass? Now, if you have allergies like me, you ain't doing none of that stuff. But maybe you do other things. I like to drive. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, so there's a lake front, and I like to drive to it and just sit and look at the water. And that's a way of getting grounded and reconnecting. In my home, in my backyard, I have it comfortably so that when I do want to sit outside, I am able to do so and kind of get grounded in nature. You could have plants or flowers in your home. You could be mindful. Maybe you invest in, restoring plants, or you donate trees, things like that. Anything that would get you grounded in the world around you. But where I want to focus the rest of our time with is creating healthy spaces. Now, some of us have control over the spaces we are in. We have chosen where we are living. We have chosen where we work. We have chosen how we spend our out of work time, whether it's a gym of our choosing, a volunteering of our choosing. Others of us don't have control over our environment. And it could be because you're incarcerated. It could be because you are a child and you don't have decision making over what's happening. It could be because you are living in someone else's home, or you feel forced to work somewhere because it's kind of the only place you can work right now to get yourself where you're trying to go. But even in those situations, whether we've chosen the environment or we feel somewhat trapped in an environment, we can find ways to create a healthy environment that keeps us mindful of who we are, what our goals are, and where we're trying to get to. So the first thing we want to do when we're thinking about creating a healthy space is to consider safety. I know I've worked with people who will give suggestions and they don't think about the most basic aspect that would impact that suggestion. If you are not safe to make changes, if you are not safe to alter what's happening, then of course it makes it much more difficult for you to create environmental safety. So I want you to think about just safety in general. Do you feel psychologically safe that you are in a space where you can share your opinion and it will be received? Do you feel emotionally safe that if you were to express your emotions that it would be respected and potential change would happen? And do you feel physically safe? Are you in an environment where maybe the potential for violence or verbal abuse or some level of oppressive practices is there? If that is the case, then the first thing you have to do is to address that if you can. Because again, children don't necessarily have choices over their environment. Adults, based on the situation, may not feel they have options to change their environment. So it's always important to think about what really can you do. Security. Some people want to improve their home environment to make it more secure, or improve their neighborhood environment to make it more reflective and inclusive. And so you have to think about how might you go about doing that. It could be adding a camera to your home. It could be asking someone to leave. It could be securing an additional job so that you can transform that environment into the space that you would actually like it to be, to reflect who you are. And then the final thing that we're going to look at, because there's strategies on how we can do this, does your environment reflect calm and peace, or does it reflect chaos and disruption? When we are in environments that are not healthy, that are cluttered and fragmented, that isn't really reflective of who we are, we might feel that we don't have agency to impact the space that we are in. It makes us feel unseen, and it makes us feel that we are others. So Creating a safe space environmentally is also thinking about social justice issues. Are you included? Are you represented? Is that representation based on a stereotype or who you actually are? Are your opinions responded to and reflected upon? And most importantly, do you have the right to say no? These are all aspects of environmental safety, because when we don't feel safe where we are, we tend to engage in behaviors that would be maladaptive, counterintuitive to who we are, or might even be sabotaging of who we would like to be. So no matter where you are, I want you to know that you can create a sense of calm and peace, even if that calm and peace has to live in your personal environment of your space, your head, your heart, before you can actually let it impact the space around you. So ways that you can do that. The first thing, I'm a huge believer of journaling and developing affirmations and mantras that reflect where you're trying to go. Two, I believe that routines are extremely beneficial when we're thinking about creating a healthy space. So a morning routine, a nighttime routine, a centering routine. This could be, I'm going to turn the lights down. I'm going to play different music. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to go sit in a particular space that is reflective of the calm I am trying to achieve. And so this could be done very small scale. Now, I know we have seen wealthy people, and they have whole rooms dedicated to promoting the peace or the calm they are looking for. But you can do this even if it's just in the corner of a room. When I work with foster parents who are taking in children, and they struggle because they're like, oh, this kid, I'm doing all these things for this kid, and they're not really responding in the way I thought they would. And the first thing I ask them is, have you allowed this child to select for themselves what would be comfortable in the environment you are asking them to be in? And often it's no. So small things, you can ask your child or a person you're caring for, well, what color curtains do you want? What kind of pillow do you want? You can, even in a small space, because I know we can't dedicate a room necessarily, but we can dedicate a corner and get a curtain rod and put the curtain rod up and put curtains up. And anytime you go behind that curtain, that's your calm, that's your peace, that's where you are to be left alone when you are in that space. It doesn't have to be a grand thing. So easy to do something like that. If you can't even do that, because there just isn't space for that, or you don't have the resources to do that, one of the ways that you can create peace and calm that would be reflective in your space is to get a vision board and to put that vision board wherever your eyes meet, often in whatever space you are in, and to write down what are your goals, what are your values, what do you need to be reminded of so that you keep a positive attitude and you keep a focus on what is most important to you, so that you can get to that place of environmental safety, environmental security, and environmental peace and calm. Environment, again, like I said, it's a big word, and it really does require we think about how do we want to engage in the world to create harmony. I know for myself, service is huge. Being of service to others, being in service with others is super important. And I encourage you, if you are feeling trapped in your environment, there are three things that is going to be super beneficial for you. And I call them the 3 E's. The first thing is education. You have to challenge what you're allowing to come into your mind, what you are allowing to come into your environment and your energy. You are not always right. And things that you believed in years ago, you may find today just don't translate. So consider how you're educating yourself, how you're bringing in new information. The second thing you want to do is consider your experiences. If you're having patterns of experiences over and over and over and over again, and you are the common denominator, then it might be time to consider why you continue to have those experiences. And is there something you might be able to change in your perspective and how you are interacting with others and in how you are receiving those experiences? And the third E is exposure. You only know what you know, and that's limited. So the best thing you can do when you're thinking about shifting your environment, whether it's the big W or the little w in terms of worlds, is what am I exposing myself to? And this is why I like to be in service, because when you volunteer, when you're talking to people, when you're engaging with diverse groups of people, it can create shifts in you because you learn things. You learn a different way of being. You learn a different way of thinking about a thing. And sometimes that is the most important thing you can do. So I hope this has been extremely beneficial for you. Continue on your journey with wellness. Again, this was episode 5. So we have 3 more after this. We're going to look at mental wellness, spiritual wellness, and sexual wellness because that one always gets thrown to the side. And I think in this day and age, we really need to understand our sexuality, our expression of sexuality, and how we can be create safety, intimacy, and trust to strengthen our sexual wellness. So thank you and have a wonderful rest of your week.